says, evolution says that there is no flood, no worldwide flood. And if you believe what the Bible says and what the Bible teaches, which we do here at North Oaks, then it's what we trust. We trust that what God says in the Bible is what is truth. And so he says that there was a worldwide flood, and evolution say no. Okay, so we had studied the first day. We went over it a little bit more detail, and I'm going to add some things to that first little part there. One is that in the beginning of time, God said, if you notice on the it was in verse 5, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And you just think, okay, well, what's a evening and a morning? We don't look at time that way here in the United States, and most people don't. They usually start midnight to midnight, or in the morning till the next morning. That's a day. And God says it's evening to the morning, and that would be, and in the Bible, when they say that, the Jewish people are talking about if it's going from evening, the day part before it gets to dark, that is considered the evening. Is all that before that, from the, I'm going to say 7 o'clock, it gets dark, and it depends on the time of the year it is, but at 7 o'clock it gets dark. So that goes from all the way to 7 o'clock in the morning, where it's just coming from dark of the previous day. So that's how they look at it. So that's how God is presenting it. Not that that's because the Jews looked at it that way. They got it from the way God presented it here in the Bible. So that's the way God looks at it too. Okay. So from evening, so 7 o'clock in the morning, all the way to 7 o'clock in the evening would be the evening. And then the morning would be 7 o'clock in the evening, all the way to 7 o'clock in the morning of the next day. Okay. So wanted to make that distinction. And I'm going to say that the day was 24 hours in the very beginning, and that it was 300, let's see, there was 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. And in the beginning, there were 30 days would be equal to 1 month. And there were 12 months, which is equal to 360 days. Now, that's not like it is now, is it? So the precise time of a day is 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. Now, that'd be hard for your little clock to keep up with, wouldn't it? The years is 365. I mean, a year is 365 days, but it's actually 365.2422 days. That would be hard to keep up with. So how we can't be exactly accurate on 4000 BC and all that business, but that is, we're not going to be 4 billion years off. Okay, so that's the explanation there. And I would say the difference between the 24-hour day and the 30 days and the year would be because of the flood. When the flood happened, lots of things changed. Okay, but we're not going to probably not going to get to the flood in this one, but that's how you can explain it when you're teaching it to your kids. Whenever you can't think of the answer real quick, you say, well, Dr. Rocky said, get you out of the hole there. And then the other thing is that the flood, those two things ought to get you safe. Okay. Now, the flood happened in about 2300 BC, which is, quite a while from creation, and that's average. And we're talking about 1,700 years from creation, Now that would be a lot of time for people, Adam and Eve and everybody else that came after them, to live in a perfect environment, what shall we say, not a cursed earth. All right. As far as temperature, I should correct that, as far as temperature is concerned. In other words, no rain, no snow, no winter like we haven't. We didn't have a North Pole and a South Pole freezing, okay? Stuff like that. So it's hard for us to picture a world like that, but when you start out with creation, everything was just perfect. Nobody, no people, no animals were going to die until sin came into the world. And so that is, there are a group of people called theistic evolutionists. Now, that's not to say that they are not saved, but they don't believe what the Bible says, because you have to have a flood. Now, they're trying to say that there was it took 4 billion years, because the scientists say that it took 4 billion years. Most of the world's scientists, and the majority, I don't think it's 51% to be majority. It could be, 80% of the world thinks that there was no flood and things happened like they happen all the way till the time that like now. Okay. And so their thinking is that away. And when they try to invent things or create things or anything like that, they're doing it all based off of their background. Okay. So and we're not saying that they're not saved. They just don't believe in what the Bible is saying is exactly the words that God is telling mankind. Okay. In Genesis 1, we're talking about a triune universe. And we said that there was a time, space, and matter. The matter is made up of atoms, molecules, and substance. And it would be, there is energy in matter that holds things together. There's energy. And when the Spirit of God in verse 2, I think it was, verse 2, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, then this is in my opinion and a lot of other people's opinion, that was him imparting energy, but this would be more like the energies to get the earth rotating and the earth orbiting and the gravitational field and the electromagnetic field of the earth. Okay. So, but that's just opinions of man. God didn't say that's what happened there, but he did say that the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Okay, and the first day, the earth would have had to been drawn into a ball. Okay, if it was in the very first verse, Genesis 1, it says that the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the earth. So we didn't have any sun. And when I said the earth orbiting around in orbit, I meant where the sun will eventually be, but it still started the process, because we going to have the first day in verse 5 says that it was the evening and morning of the first day. Okay, so that tells us that things were already moving. It would have to be a ball and God created light, and there's no sun, so he creates light, and so the ball has to it'd be turning to get the evening and the morning of the first day. Okay. And so let's go on to the second day. Oh, on the first day when he said he created light, I believe, and it doesn't say in scripture, so this is opinion, that's when he created angels, cherubims and seraphim. Okay. Reason for that is that I believe that is in let's see if I can find that verse real quickly. 1 Timothy 2:14. Y'all, if you will, turn to that if you want to read. I'm going to read it out loud, but you're going to. Well, that's not the only verse, but it's part of it. 1 Timothy 2:14. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in transgression. Okay. So that's talking about Adam and Eve later, but this was, we know that Satan deceived Eve. We don't know when he did that. In the first, in creation, we're going to find out, and I'm going to give you pick a time, but anyway, that is not for sure when that happened. Eve was deceived. Adam, he just rebelled, said, I'm going to do it anyway, instead of sticking by his guns and say, God said not to do this, I'm not going to do this. So anyway, John 8 verse 44. This is the part I'm telling you about, that I believe this is when the angels were created. 8:44. You are of your father the devil. Now this is Jesus talking. And the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning. When was the beginning? Okay. We know that in the beginning, Satan was in the Garden of Eden, and he was a good guy. Okay. So for a while. Okay. But we'll get to that in a little bit, or I'll tell you some verses that you can go to. I don't think we'll go over them now since we're doing creation. When he's in John 8:44, when he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. So he was an angel, but now he's on the bad side. And there's some other angels that are on the bad side. So there's some good ones. How many, we don't know. According to Revelation, when Satan, that old dragon, fell out of heaven, he took a third of the angels with him. So that means that he got a third of the angels to go along with him. And so there's a third of a whole bunch down here on earth. Okay. But there's 2/3 still up there with God in heaven. And this is the way I look at it, and that's why it has to be at the beginning. Also, at the seventh day, God stopped creating, and he rested in creation and all things that he had made. So I have to, in my thinking of how things work, I would have to see that, that's how that would have to work. Also, the theistic evolutionists think that there's what's called a gap theory. And the gap theory is between verse 1 and verse 2. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And then there was a gap when all the billions of years happened. And this is when the angelic beings were doing what they're doing and revolting and all that. So I'm getting that out of the way. This is a flow from here to here because it's day, evening, and morning of the first day. You can't have billions of years in a big gap. there as far as that. And the earth was, when it says in verse 2, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the earth, of the deep. This is where the gap theory evolutionists say that that's when God had done something to those evil angels, and then he recreated, and then he started the first day from this point on. Okay, so that's why I have to have the angels being created at the same time he's creating the world. All right, verse 6 of Genesis 1. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Okay, so even though we've got a ball and we got a day and a night on the first day, it is a ball of dirt or soil or earth, and it's covered with water. There's no land mass, not like this thing here, where you got some land sticking out of the water here. You got just a ball of water day and night as it rotates. So then the term for the word expanse is what firmament is. And it says in the heaven is a different word than firmament. So we've got the heaven, and that's usually considered, has some, it's just space. So in between the space, you have an expanse. Okay, and this would be all around this ball of water. So you would have that what we call the heavens. That would be outer space. That would be, I guess, where you can't breathe air. Anything out past that is called outer space. If you can't breathe. Down below that we call it the atmosphere. They divide it into 3 parts, but in any case, that would be the space that's right above the water right now. Okay, so we got water, space, and water again in outer space. And we talked about that there is water in outer space. Plus, we're going to have a lot of this water at the flood time going to come down. Okay, but there's still water in very outer space, and it's in the form of ice because it's mostly cold. But the water that's above the waters would be, it's not clouds. Okay, we can't have clouds yet because you would have rain, unless God just says it ain't gonna rain. But also because if you had clouds, if you had the sun shine through it just right, you'd have rainbow. Can't have that yet because we haven't had rain on the earth until for 1,700 years. Okay. The form of water above the earth, not only is it ice, but it also could be water vapor. And some people think that because when we do get the sun, as it shines down through the water vapor, the thick water vapor that's going to actually condense and come down during the flood, it's going to be make like a thermal blanket on the earth, the dirt, the water on top of it, and then as the sun comes down through that water vapor and it's shining on the waters, it makes a nice temperature. Okay, like a thermal blanket when you're cold at night and you pull up a thermal blanket, and this would be the way that the temperature is going to be good enough for, let's see, where's that one about people running around, or Adam and Eve running around without any clothes on. Now, if you're on the earth and you've got, there's going to be woods, everything else, you're going to have sun, You're gonna have night, you're gonna have day. You're gonna be in your what's your 98.6 degree temperature in your metabolic body. That's gonna be kind of cold unless it's just right. What I'm gonna say 75 degrees, nighttime, daytime, all time. Okay, for 1,700 years. All right. So paradise on earth. Yeah, it may be. Yeah. In verse 7, God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Okay. And God called the firmament heaven, and that's, we have the word heaven in verse 1, but we have it named the one that's above the firmament in what's called, what we would say is kind of like outer space. Okay. And the evening and the morning were the second day. So the second day, we got the thermal blanket effect. Okay. And then verse 9, and God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And in verse 10, and God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas, and God saw that it was good. And so it's actually going to be the third day, but right now, so now we got dry land appeared. I believe that this was half dirt and half water. That globe there wasn't like what we got now. That's after the flood, but half of it was, and it was flat dirt, okay, flat soil, and the water, fresh water. That would be what is usable for man. Okay, so flat dirt and half water. Okay, and that's just my opinion. You can't prove which way it was. And no clouds, I said. Okay. Verse 11, and God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. And then in verse 12, and the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. Now, we got plant life. Okay, so we've got also on this is going to be the third day. We've got the dirt coming up, half and half, water, half dirt and half water. And we've got plant life coming up out of the dirt. Okay. And I don't believe it was just a little bit. I think it was, he didn't put just a little bit of grass here and it was fully matured. You know that saying, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first? Chicken. Okay. So anyhow, so grass, trees, everything all mature, ready to go. Okay. And temperature is just right, but we don't have a sun. Now we have God's light. And it didn't say that God is heat and light, but could have been, we don't know. And so the plant life would have been thriving as long as if they're getting energy. The sun is what is the most part of our energy here on earth. Okay, not all of it, but most of it. And so we don't have it yet. And so, but this is only one night, one day and one night that they got to hang out until the sun comes up, or he's going to make the sun in the fourth day. Okay. So anyhow, however you want to look at that, we have plant life, and we have the fact that the earth came up out of the waters, because remember I said it was a ball of water. Now it's the dirt's come out. All right. And I'm calling it dirt, but that means soil, okay, earth. And it's flat, a lot of plant life. And already mature fruit trees with fruit on it, ready to go, ready to eat. And I consider this day, the third day, the foundation of the earth. Now, some people say the foundation of the earth happened when God spoke and created the heavens and the earth. And that could well be. It's just that because we have in Job that the sons of God shouted at the foundations of the earth. That's also a reason I got to have the angels on the first day so that they could shout when he made the foundations of the earth on the third day, when he brought the dirt up out of the water. Okay. Verse 14, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for the lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God, in verse 10, and God made two great lights, the greater light to rule over the day and the lesser light to rule over the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give lights upon the earth and to rule, this is verse 18, and to rule over the day and over the night and divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning was the fourth day. Okay, so day 4, we've got the sun being made and the stars and the sun and the moon and the stars. And this is where our energy source is, would be coming from the sun, as far as what we see today. All right. And then this starting up on the 5th day, and God said, let the water bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the water brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the sea, and let the fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the 5th day. Okay. So we got fish, or things in the water. I call it fish, but there's porpoises are in the water. And we have a what do you call it? A classification of animals. And we call fish that have gills, and porpoises don't have gills. They got their little blowhole. And so we call them mammals and stuff like this. Okay. But God is saying that they came from the water, and our classification doesn't necessarily don't mix it with how God created things. And we're supposed to define things here on earth, but we can't, we're supposed to think God's thoughts after him as we define things. And if something comes up that, well, that can't be, then we need to change things. But because most of the world has gone over to evolution, that isn't happening. Okay, so you got to kind of be in the play both sides as far as if you're in the scientific community. Okay. This business is about kinds. Both that was kinds in the plant life, and that's kinds in the fish, and that's kind in the fowl. So he's not creating anything new. We may discover something and say, whoa, this is a new species. Okay. And there again, we're using species as what God is saying is kinds, and that's not the same thing. This, say there's a dog kind, okay? There'd be a male and a female, and it would be maybe not look like Lulu, okay? It may not look like the dogs that we have, you know, and think about, because you look at the dog kind, you see the Chihuahua and you see the Great Dane, okay, when they all dogs. So they're not a different species, but a wolf could be, is a dog kind. I don't remember if the genetic makeup of a fox is the same. If they have the same, like we have 46 chromosomes or genes, and so in the human form, you can breed with the same chromosomes of in the 46. Okay, a gorilla and a chimpanzee don't have that. Okay, and so you can't breed with them and produce offspring. And so that's what's the kind talking about. Now there are some plants that got 46 chromosomes too. So you can't breed with the plant and make a whatever that would make. Okay, so but anything that can produce viable offspring. Viable offspring doesn't mean living offspring. It means that, but also the offspring can reproduce. Makes a difference. There's a what's called a hybrid, a mule, and they're a cross between I think it's a donkey and a horse. And you know, you think, well, they look alike, they must be same, but their offspring is a mule and it doesn't have the same chromosomes. So it can't be, you can't take a male mule and a female mule and breed them, because they ain't gonna produce nothing. Okay, so the hybrids don't reproduce. But that's the same way with plants. You can combine some things, maybe two plants, and you get a hybrid, but it doesn't reproduce or make the seed that it can reproduce, because you have to take those original two things together to produce the thing that, say, you're making, and it would not be able to take that species, that set of plants, and continue the offspring of that. And that's not the same as grafting. Okay, that's a different deal. You're not actually changing the genetic composition of the plant or the animal. We're talking about animals. All right, that's the fifth day. Okay, and oh my goodness. Okay, so we'll pause there and see if you got any questions about all that I've just said. You want to say anything about stuff that you said? Because yeah. Weather. Yeah. Well, what I was saying everything was perfect, but it was there was no rain. There would be no hot and cold. Okay. There would be no seasons. Okay. So the climate would have been perfect. Yeah. Yeah. And and we had, if I'm correct, in half dirt and half water, everything was still half dirt and half water. Now, the earth is going to be cursed also when man does his when he disobeys God. Okay, the earth, mankind, and all the animals, everything's cursed, but it doesn't necessarily happen all at one time. Okay, man's going to be the main object of the curse or the punishment, but the earth is going to be cursed also. We have, if everybody, all the animals and all the people are going to live forever, then there's a law of second thermodynamics, which is in effect today. Okay. What that is complicated wordage of this law. Thermodynamics is where heat is being used. And you could say, okay, this, to put it simply, means that everything is deteriorating. That would not have been in effect until Adam and Eve sinned. When did they sin? We don't know. How many years, how many days was it before Adam and Eve sinned? We don't know. I'm going to tell you one, but that's my opinion. But until then, everything, the second law of thermodynamics was at equilibrium. It wasn't, it wasn't deteriorating. And God set that in motion when he said, Adam, you're going to die. Eve, you're going to die if you eat of this. And they did, then they started dying. That's when the second law of thermodynamics, you started deteriorating. Everything that you can see, I know I don't look like I'm deteriorating, but everything deteriorates. That table is deteriorating. A diamond is deteriorating. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, they let's beat this. They get around the second law of thermodynamics with evolution by, they say, outer space, there's energy coming from outer space. So it's replenishing, who can figure how much energy is coming from the sun, how much energy is coming from outer space, what proportion is that keeps everything just so. So they say you can't use that. Thermodynamics is in a closed system. Well, do you consider just the earth the closed system or the whole universe the closed system? They're not going to accept that it's the whole system. So it's not a closed system, it's an open system. So we have energy coming from outer space that's could make the evolution theory work if they were arguing that point. But so when I have the experts, both creation expert and the evolution expert, and they're smart, but everybody is smart. But me, I'm just looking out here and I say, what's not deteriorating? I used to be young. I ain't young no more. I have deteriorated. Didn't think I was deteriorating when I was 21. Never thought that was going to happen, but it has happened. So you're all deteriorating. The table, and my son asked me, well, what about a diamond? His wife had a diamond on. Well, what about that diamond there? I said, that's deteriorating too. You just not going to outlive the deterioration of that diamond. Everything, rocks, deteriorating. And that wasn't so in the beginning when God said, he didn't say that to Adam and Eve. He didn't say the animals were going to live forever. He didn't say that Adam and Eve were going to live forever. He just said, you're going to die. And actually, it would start dying, right? Okay. When you eat this fruit. Okay. So that answer your question about the environment was great for 1700 years. About, we don't know exact as far as the temperature is concerned, because we didn't have rain, couldn't have snow. So, any other questions? Okay. I hate to start on day, this is the animals, but the kinds is used to, because I still think in kinds instead of I think of species, you know, because I was brought up in the species, and when you think about it, you know, you think, well, seems logical, but it's you know, it is, as we discover more about genetics, we're finding out that it is important, the chromosome number that you start out with, and that you can, whenever we're gonna get into birds and bees, I don't know, I should get into that. Whenever you the the number of chromosomes that split, you have half and half, and the half from one thing gets to the other thing, and it makes a whole, and then you got the possibility that you're going to have a growth, a viable human being that can, or viable being, not human being, but viable being that can go on and reproduce. And that would go for plants too, because in fish, and I'm saying that because of day 7, he stopped creation, and he stopped the thing. In creation, he would create things, and he would make things out of the created things. Okay, but God would, but he's not doing that anymore. So when we find something new, it's something that has turned from being good to bad. I won't mention the example, but something we're dealing with right now. All right, now we'll let Dave close this, please, sir, and we will go. Dave. Yeah.